Hello class. Today we're going to study the lower teeth, the teeth of the lower arch. As stated earlier, of the 32 adult teeth, we have 4 arches. The mouth is divided into 4 segments. If you know half the mouth, you know the whole mouth. So today we're going to study the teeth of the lower arch, the right side. The first tooth we're going to study today is the mandibular central incisor. If you remember from the first class, we studied the maxillary central incisor. Now this is the mandibular, the lower tooth, the central incisor, your lower front tooth, right up against the midline or the median suture. So this tooth, facial aspect or labial aspect. So rotate the tooth down, the incisal edge. As I rotate the tooth to show you the mesial aspect that faces the midline, rotate the tooth, the distal aspect that faces the back of the mouth, and the lingual aspect of the tooth. The function of the lower mandibular central incisor is the same as the maxillary, to cut and slice food. From your book, the Atlas of Tooth Form, you can see these same aspects of the tooth that we showed in the tooth model. This tape will be simpler because you already know the maxillary teeth and the mandibular teeth will correlate with the maxillary teeth, and you'll understand the similarities very rapidly. So as with the maxillary, the lateral central incisor is very similar, almost a twin to the maxillary central incisor. The mandibular lateral incisor, as you can see, is almost a twin. Facial aspect, incisal aspect, mesial aspect, distal aspect, lingual aspect, almost a twin. Bringing the mandibular cuspid along. Of course, the cuspid is used for tearing and holding on to food, same as the maxillary. The mandibular or lower cuspid, facial or labial aspect, incisal edge, cutting edge, mesial aspect, distal aspect. The total number of teeth in the adult dentition, 32. 32 teeth in the adult dentition. Mostly in America, 4 teeth are extracted. The mandibular and maxillary third molars are extracted. And generally when we're restoring teeth in America, we only restore 28 teeth. So here we have the mandibular or lower first bicuspid. Bicuspid. That means 2 cusp tips. Buccal cusp tip, lingual cusp tip, bicuspid. Here we're showing the facial aspect or labial aspect of the bicuspid. cusp tips, the occlusal table of the bicuspid. As we rotate, mesial aspect, rotate, distal aspect, the same as all the other teeth. So as you're learning dental anatomy and dental location of the teeth in the mouth, you can see the similarities that we always speak of. I know it sounds redundant, but as a beginner, you need to learn these things, and you need to digest these things and solidify these things into your mind, because these are the things you're going to use your whole career. Mandibular second bicuspid. This is kind of a special tooth because it's a transitional tooth. It's the most transitional tooth in the mouth, and we're going to show it to you. And we're going to show you why. Facial aspect, also the buccal aspect, mesial aspect, distal aspect, occlusal aspect. Bicuspid, two cusps, but you'll say, well, there's three. Of course, there are three generally. But this is the transitional aspect of this tooth. The lingual half of this tooth, the lingual half, is a molar. The facial or buccal half is a bicuspid. We still call it a bicuspid. But this tooth, being a transitional tooth, is the only tooth that has both transverse and oblique ridges, as you can see. Oblique ridges coming off on the angle on the occlusal table, and the transverse straight on ridge coming from the central dissectional groove up to the cusp tip. Bicuspid, a transitional tooth. The teeth are transitioning from cutting and tearing, as you can see, transitioning down the line into grinding teeth. This tooth is a grinding tooth and a cutting tooth. Mandibular second bicuspid. Mandibular first molar. Mandibular first molar. Facial aspect or buccal aspect. Mesial aspect. Distal aspect. Lingual aspect. Occlusal table. You'll see on this molar, this tooth has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cusp tips. 5 cusp tips on this tooth. This is the first of the grinding molars. It's the largest of the mandibular molars. And generally, it will have 5 cusp tips. You will see a certain percentage of first molars in the human dentition that only has 4 cusp tips, but generally you'll see them to look like this. Mandibular second molar. Buccal aspect. Facial aspect. 4 cusp tips. 1, 2, 3, 4. Mesial aspect. Distal aspect. Lingual aspect. The last of the grinding molars. So you will see this is the right side of the lower jaw. The right side mirrors the left side of the lower, so if you know these teeth, you'll know the left. Just as if you know the maxillary teeth on the right, you'll know the maxillary teeth on the left. Our next class will concern us with tooth numbers and location of landmarks of the mouth. We will go over the large arch here, and we'll start with a little overview of the next class. We're going to learn the tooth numbers. The tooth numbers start with number 1 and goes all the way around the maxillary arch. So we're just going to work on that a little bit today because the next video will be all about this. So you'll see that we're missing the third molars on each part of this arch. So number 1 is missing, and number 16 is missing. This is the average arch of the people we work on in the United States, because in the United States most third molars are extracted as a non-functioning kind of a deformed tooth. So this is tooth number 1, which is missing, going around from the upper right or maxillary right. Tooth number 2, tooth number 3, tooth number 4, tooth number 5, tooth number 6, tooth number 7, tooth number 8, tooth number 9, tooth number 10, tooth number 11, tooth number 12, tooth number 13, tooth number 14, tooth number 15. This is just the maxillary arch. We'll study the mandibular arch in the next tape. What I want you to do is review these videos and know all the aspects of these teeth and start to solidify in your mind the tooth numbers. The next tape we will study all of the tooth numbers. Thank you. Have a good evening.